6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The History with Jackson podcast. Hello and welcome to the History with Jackson podcast, and welcome to the Katharine of Aragon Festival special series in partnership with Peterborough Cathedral and Peterborough Museum. Now, this special series is looking and covering the Katharine of Aragon Festival. We will be speaking to some of the historians who are giving Tudor-focused talks and tours around Peterborough and Peterborough Cathedral. We will also be speaking to some of the amazing living historians who are reenacting parts of Katharine's life. This festival commemorates Katharine's amazing life from the 25th to the 29th of January 2024. And if you hear any part of this festival coverage, do try and get down to Peterborough Cathedral to experience some of the events that we are covering. All the information for the events will be in the description below. And without further ado, let's get into this episode of the Katharine of Aragon Festival special series. Hello and welcome back to the History of Jackson podcast. Today we are joined by Laura from Peterborough Museum. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming on, and thank you for having us this weekend. It's been a really fun weekend.
Yeah, it's been a delight.
So this weekend, since Thursday really, has been the Katharine of Aragon Festival. Why is it important to celebrate Katharine?
Well, I mean, as I'm sure you've kind of been told the whole time that you've been here, so the 29th of January, which actually is today, is the date of Katharine's interment at Peterborough Cathedral, so obviously our local cathedral. And I think it's one of those, it's an annual celebration, and it really is that, it's a celebration. So there is the formal side of things, which obviously is seen at Peterborough Cathedral with the commemoration service. But actually, once those formalities are done, it's a kind of celebration of, yes, Katharine of Aragon and the sort of impact that she had, I guess, probably on England, rather than specifically on Peterborough. But it was also about learning about the past, the Tudor Peterborough past, I suppose. And that's where I think, for us, working in collaboration with Peterborough Cathedral, we can kind of bring two sides of that coin, really. They can really talk about the Queen and everything that kind of she means to us and to them in terms of the grave being in the cathedral, but it's also an opportunity for us as the kind of city's museum to, I guess, just spread the word a little bit about what Peterborough would have been like at the time of Katharine of Aragon for everyday people.
It's been great to learn that whilst we've been here and the videos that we've recorded. But what have you been doing then here at Peterborough Museum to discuss the Tudor period in Peterborough and Tudor life?
Well, as again, you've seen, we've had a variety of events on, and we try to offer things for lots of different audiences and at lots of different kind of entry points. I think the Tudors, for me, are sort of a group of people and a time period that often we have a little bit of an understanding of. Many of us will have learnt something about it at school, and so it sparks out that little bit of interest in the public and perhaps in some people as well who might not consider themselves to be interested in history. But also then, of course, we have people who are more kind of academically inclined, shall we say. So we try and do a variety of things. So we've had a big family event on all weekends at home with the Tudors. So that's where we've had reenactors coming and dressing up as Tudor people. And they're talking about, as I say, that sort of everyday life, the kind of the food people would have eaten, the religion that they might have followed, the kind of medicine and the cures, that type of thing. And I find with that one we often get a kind of mix of people, adults that are interested, but also kids that are doing Tudors at school maybe, and so it can be a really nice family day. And that's what we've heard from people, that they've really enjoyed that. And then we've had a variety of walks, so new this year, a sort of family tour, and then kind of what I would consider our sort of ever-popular tour, which takes people around Peterborough city centre and then into the cathedral, and again, as I say, highlights that what Peterborough would have been like at the time of Katharine of Aragon's funeral. And of course, we had our talk this year. Of course, we have somebody new every year, but this year, Dr. Onyeka Nubia, and it was hugely well received. He was a wonderful speaker, and I think that's kind of one of those things that. What was lovely the day after, I had people coming in sort of saying, "Oh, I heard it was really good." They'd not been, but word had spread about kind of that type of thing for people who are interested to delve a little bit deeper, would consider themselves, I think, perhaps interested in history. But obviously kind of made really accessible for people to kind of get to. I think one of the really interesting things, I suppose, about the variety of events that we do is the type of people that we get. Now, you may have spoken to people at the cathedral about this, but I would say in terms of drawing people into Peterborough, into the city, tourists, if you will, the Katharine of Aragon Festival is one of those events that really does do that. And we see at our events, certainly, I think every year, I would say we get at least a handful of people who've come over from Spain, for instance, specifically for the festival. And that's always so wonderful to hear, and they're kind of often sort of blown away that we have this kind of massive festival commemorating a Spanish queen, I guess.
And it is always lovely to hear the Spanish voices and accents across the town centre at this time of year, well, any time of year really, because they do come all year to see Katharine. But I love how within the coverage of the festival you put accessibility at the heart of it, and trying to get children interested and involved in history. Why do you think it's important to get kids into history, and what does Peterborough Museum try to do through the rest of the year to keep kids interested?
Yeah. We try to make the museum a place that everyone feels they can come. That's obviously a work in progress. Some people are more kind of comfortable in museums, and other people are kind of maybe that's not for me. And it's kind of us. Our events program is one of the ways that we try to democratize that a little bit. We try to make it something that as you say is accessible, and I think there's all the old traditional reasons for getting kids involved in history and learning from our history, and the importance of those lessons, that I'm not sure all the things they're told in school, but I think also it's about, for us, it's about, this isn't school. And for me, with events, I always kind of say, I'm tricking people into learning because really we want to put on something that is fun, that they want to come to. It's their leisure time, right? And, if we can do something that they come to as a family and everybody's learning and enjoying together, that's what I love to see. And I think with our programming through the rest of the year, that's sort of what we try to do through a variety of different topics. It's not always history-based, but equally we do sort of pull from the history of the city and from our building when we think it's appropriate and when we can. I think there's an element, obviously, of once you make children comfortable in a museum environment and kind of consumers of culture, you've kind of got them for life a little bit. If they have those formative experiences and know that these venues and this culture is for them and is part of them, then that's a really enriching experience.
It's lovely to hear the passion that you have for that, like bringing kids in and tricking them into learning as well. I love that answer, because we often do have to trick them into learning. And today, specifically today on Monday, you have a lot of school children here across the Peterborough Museum. So what is today about?
Well, so today, from our perspective, I suppose today the Katharine of Aragon Festival has ended for us. The cathedral are picking up the mantle with their schools day over at their venue, as you've been seeing today. So today's a normal day for us, and actually we're close to the public on Mondays, and sometimes that means that we can kind of accept bigger groups of schools. We've got like 90 kids in, and they're just doing one of our regular school sessions that we do throughout the year. We have a number of sessions that are really popular. We do Romans, we do Medicine Through Time, we do toys, that's a particularly popular one, past lives, lots of things about the Victorian times. So So yeah, it's one of the kind of audiences that we get quite a lot here, but we're always looking to kind of encourage more school kids to come in. So yeah.
It's great that you can have a day where kids can come into a museum and learn and develop that cultural capital to help them learn history a little bit better, but also understand where they come from and what's surrounding them, and perhaps some of the cultural references their teachers and their parents are making as well, or their grandparents in some cases. I know I've seen a toy within the display that I have at home, which made me feel a little bit old. But
Yeah, it's definitely that. And yeah, well, we had a toys exhibition relatively recently, actually, and there was a lot of that. There was a lot of, I used to have one of those, and just that kind of intergenerational experience, I suppose, which is so interesting. And the school sessions, they really take that mantle of bringing the past to life again. Often our heritage teachers will dress up, as you potentially have seen as you walked in today. And it's just getting to kind of learn history from adults who aren't their teachers as well, I think sometimes can really, they're immersed in this environment, and it really has a positive experience.
Yeah, I know some of my students probably listen to this, and they probably agree with that point, that no matter how many times I tell them something, it takes you guys to tell them it for them to actually believe it. So that's a very nice point. Now I've got two final fun questions for you as part of being at the museum and this being part of the Katharine of Aragon Festival special series. So firstly, what is your favourite thing about Katharine of Aragon?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I have to admit, I think my favourite thing, it's kind of a Peterborough thing. Now I'm not local. I didn't grow up in Peterborough itself. And when I came to work here at the museum, more than 10 years ago now, it was one of the things that really struck me, and has struck me every year that we've run the festival since then, is the sort of the passion for Katharine, I suppose, in the city, and the real sort of love. Now, look, history is nuanced. I would certainly never say that it isn't. But I guess sometimes people might boil it down to kind of Anne Boleyn versus Katharine of Aragon, and that very kind of polarising view. Now, as I say, we would never do that. However, I would say that if you were to do that, like Peterborough is staunchly on the side of Katharine, and actually, I think what's been interesting, particularly through lots of sort of lectures and talks with historians over the years that we've brought in for the festival, has been to kind of see that interest in the questions and answers from the members of the public here in Peterborough, the kind of love that people have for Katharine of Aragon, the affection, I suppose, that, for whatever interpretation people have of her, and frankly, I do believe she wasn't any pushover, and she, not just the victim, as they say, they're on her side, I think, to kind of put it in that terms, and I think that's just, I don't know, that's just been a very interesting way of it, rather than it being very removed, kind of make it quite personal, I suppose, to the city we're in.
Yeah, I really like that point. I think I was talking to someone the other day about how basically when you move to Peterborough, you're on first name basis with Katharine of Aragon. Yeah. It feels weird to say of Aragon after a name as well, especially after this weekend. Yeah. So I think that's a really nice answer for that. And then the second fun question, the final one, is what's your favourite thing about Peterborough Museum?
Ooh, I think it's the diversity of things that we have. So many people might not know if they're not from Peterborough, but it's a historic building, so it's a Georgian mansion. But as we've been talking about a lot over the course of this weekend particularly, the first house on this site was Tudor, and actually if you go down into our cellars you can see some Tudor stonework and remains from that early house. It's very laziness of building, they just didn't knock it down properly when they just plonked their Georgian townhouse on top. But after that it went through being a hospital, the city's only infirmary in the Victorian period, all before it kind of became a museum. And that means that we've kind of got even within the building, this really interesting story. You know, we have one of only 3 historic operating theatres left remaining in the country upstairs, and the only one of its specific period. And actually, to have a find like that and the stories that go with it. I mean, I think I was mentioning to you about Alfred Caleb Taylor and this kind of pioneering X-ray a radiographer, I suppose, the first X-ray machine outside of London at the time. And, those sorts of personal stories, happening here in Peterborough. I think, being able to kind of pull those out and that kind of interesting story is, probably my favourite thing.
That was an amazing answer. And I certainly, you have the kitchen downstairs, the surgery, and then this beautiful boardroom, which... It is such a diversity in different types of history and different types of rooms and the different uses of this building. So I think that's a lovely answer. Now, Peterborough Museum is a lovely museum to go and visit and look at the history that they have on offer. If you want to go and look and learn more about Peterborough Museum that Laura's just told us all about, please do head to the descriptions in the link below. You can learn all about it. You can go and plan your visit to go and visit Peterborough Cathedral or keep up to date with their social media channels. In the meantime, thank you very much for listening, and I hope you go and visit Peterborough Museum.